Scenes like this are fast becoming the norm as a global fuel crisis hits countries across Asia. But to see a deeper impact of the US-Israel war against Iran on fuel supplies, you have to look up. Jet fuel supplies are also feeling the crunch of the war in the Middle East. And while fuel prices soar sky high, airlines are increasingly deciding to leave their planes grounded.
It's now become the most constrained input in aviation, not just expensive, but increasingly scarce.
Why is the fuel crisis hitting jet fuel hardest? Jet fuel is a uniquely high-value product that requires complex processing, higher levels of purity, and expensive storage options. In Asia, South Korea, China, Japan, Singapore, India, and Thailand are all top producers of jet fuel. But many of these nations rely on raw fuel imports from the Middle East.
If we look at Asian refineries, most are hardwired to run on sour crude from the Middle East, and that structural reliance is making it really difficult for refiners to make that sort of seamless transition toward lighter, sweeter crudes without distorting yields. If we look at those sour crudes in particular, most of them have rallied in price since the start of the crisis, so that in turn has filtered into jet fuel prices.
The Strait of Hormuz, which accounts for about 20% of global oil shipping, is largely closed to international shipping because of the war, and this has had a direct impact on airlines. While petrol prices rose by roughly 80% since the start of the conflict, jet fuel has increased by 195% to reach a record $230 per barrel in Singapore. The high cost and limited supply of crude oil have hampered Asian jet fuel production.
And this will also increase the maintenance prices of the aircraft as well, because you need aircraft components to do the maintenance processes. So that aircraft components need to be transported as well. Major transportation mode, they uses fuel as well to transport these aircraft components from one point to the other point.
As the crisis continues, most jet fuel producers have begun to prioritize domestic markets by limiting exports. China, for example, is the region's largest jet fuel exporter. But it had cut back on exports by nearly 40% month-on-month in March. For countries in the region that rely on Chinese jet fuel exports, this has had a significant impact on their aviation industry. In response, Asian airlines have announced a wide array of measures to counteract the limitations on jet fuel. Some airlines, such as Air New Zealand, Cebu Air, and Air Asia, have cancelled flights. Others, like Hong Kong's Cathay Pacific, have announced price increases. But troubles in the aviation industry go beyond passenger flights. Increased costs and reduced frequency of cargo flights can also spark inflation.
We're looking at higher air freight costs, and that will feed into supply chain inflation, of course. There's going to be knock-on effects, of course, therefore, on productive potential within the economy.
Commercial air cargo, for example, is an industry that ships goods worth $8 trillion annually. Fewer flights could mean fewer shipments of perishable goods. It could also impact Asia's tourism-oriented economies.
If we look at aviation as a sector, I mean, it's a force multiplier for trade and services. Any sustained disruption will drag on GDP via tourism, logistics, services. And it also reinforces the inflationary pressures that's already been imposed on transport costs, which, as we've talked about, can be passed on to consumers.
There will be a deflation with regards to the passenger traffic, but there will also be a normalization. There will be acceptance, there will be acknowledgement of the situation, and airline would also optimize their operational costs. They will do some form of calculation in accordance to their mathematical model.
If the war in Iran ends today, how long will it take for the airline industry to bounce back?
It will take a lot of time for things to resume as they did pre-crisis. I mean, right now we're looking at vessel traffic down 95%. That's about 15 million barrels of oil a day that's locked away from the global market. So if peace is slowly restored, there will be some sort of acceleration in efforts to diversify exit routes out the Persian Gulf from Gulf countries. In contrast, if the war does continue and even accelerate or escalate, then we will start to see rapid drawdowns from domestic stockpiles.
If the war continues, it'll not be just jet fuel facing shortages. Diesel and petrol could soon become subject to the same supply squeeze as shortages cascade through the industry.